The Simpsons predicted it again. What used to seem like a crazy joke now in 2026 increasingly looks like a news broadcast. Artificial intelligence is taking away jobs. The world is drowning in plastic. People are scared by new epidemics, and Mars no longer looks like such a fantasy. A coincidence? Or did the scriptwriters understand too well where the world was heading? Today, we will break down the creepiest prophecies of The Simpsons that have frighteningly approached reality. You are on the TopFacts channel. I wish everyone a pleasant viewing. Season 6, Episode 14, Bart's Comet. Bart gets stuck after lessons in the school observatory. He moves the telescope across the sky and accidentally spots an unknown new comet. The town names the comet in his honor, but Bart declares that this thing is on the home stretch to destroying Springfield. The adults panicked, and at the town meeting drew up a plan similar to the Armageddon scenario, to blow up the comet and save the town. The Air Force launches a rocket at it, but it misses and crashes into the only bridge leading out of Springfield. Everyone is trapped because the airport is on the other side of the bridge. All they can do is huddle in Ned Flanders' shelter, sing prayers, and wait for the end. But at the last second, the comet burns up in the smog and lands as a small pebble in Ned's yard. The town is saved by dumb luck. But now, in 2026, this story does not seem like a joke. NASA and other space agencies constantly track tens of thousands of asteroids that approach our planet. Their number has surpassed 40,000 and is steadily growing. NASA even has a team that scans the sky, looking for rocks that could destroy an entire city. In 2022, they even played out the real scene with the rocket from Bart's Comet. A spacecraft crashed into a small asteroid and managed to change its trajectory. This was the first time humans moved a space rock. But the sky is impossible to control. In 2013, a rock the size of a small house flew over Chelyabinsk in Russia, and no one noticed its approach. The meteorite exploded in the air with the force of hundreds of thousands of tons of TNT, blowing out windows all over the city and injuring about 1,000 people with glass shards. And at the beginning of 2025, an object was discovered that has a real chance of colliding with Earth in 2032. This tiny risk is enough to trigger global warning systems before we miss another strike. It is terrifying to imagine how many rocks, small on a cosmic scale but deadly for us, are invisibly flying here, and a serious test awaits us ahead. On April 13, 2029, a giant asteroid named Apophis will fly past Earth. There were fears that it could fall, but years of tracking have shown that it will miss us. Despite this, millions of people will be able to look up and see with their own eyes how a killer rock rushes over the city. In the 16th episode of the 27th season, The Margian Chronicles, the main idea is simple but crazy. A company announces that it will build a human colony on Mars by 2026, and the first to line up to board will be The Simpsons. The company Exploration Incorporated wants people to settle on Mars by 2026. It holds a large meeting and announces a clear departure date for those willing to prosper in the new colony. Lisa falls in love with this plan. She is tired of all this routine on Earth, and she wants to build a better world from scratch on the red planet. Marge hates the very idea of her daughter going on a one-way trip, so she secretly signs up as a volunteer to stay close to Lisa and protect her. To begin with, the family finds themselves in a simulated Martian base on Earth, living in a cramped metal capsule while the company observes how they handle stress. Homer and Bart quickly fail. Marge and Lisa pass all the tests and make it to the final group. Then, the tension rises sharply. The two bosses, Paul and Barry, declare that competitors might beat them to Mars. To save their image, they move the launch date from 2026 to next Thursday. Safety, checks, everything goes to hell, just to be the first. When the rocket launch finally happens, nothing changes. The ship is just a shell on a stand, a fake. Paul and Barry admit that they never had the skills or the money to get to Mars at all. They created this show to make money and run away. It is strange that the writers of The Simpsons chose 2026 as the culmination. Why? In the real world, it is precisely for 2026 that SpaceX and NASA have planned the most ambitious Mars-related missions in history. SpaceX claims that their huge Starship rocket is designed to deliver cargo and, in the future, people to Mars. And in 2036, it is planned to send the first flights of unmanned testers there to collect data on how to enter the atmosphere and land, and not to land settlers next Thursday. And only then to start building infrastructure for the conquest of Mars. At the same time, NASA is investing money in a program to move people to the moon and study the possibility of living and working there. This is the first step to Mars. 4 astronauts in a 10-day flight will explore the dark side of the moon. The Artemis II mission already launched on April 1st, 2026 from Cape Canaveral. NASA aims to test systems for long flights and check the equipment. But when something goes wrong during such expeditions, astronauts find themselves further from rescue than any human in the last 50 years. The 37th season, 36th episode, Treehouse of Horror, ends sadly, and the planet turns into a plastic world. The backstory is as follows. Dinosaurs die out, their bodies turn into oil, and then people make plastic out of it, and it accumulates as garbage. Unsurprisingly, in the end, the entire Earth is buried under it. In this future, Lisa walks over hills of bottles, bags, and broken toys. She lost her family as a result of a plastic avalanche. Everywhere there is terrible, indescribable agony. The sky is clear, but on the ground there is nothing but garbage. The survivors fight for bags, with leftover food found among the waste. Lisa is in despair. She wants to find real dirt under the layers of plastic to plant plants. She and her group dig it and fall into a tunnel. They are lucky to land in a closed fast food store, where the shelves are full of food. Another group of survivors led by Bart also breaks in. The brother and sister are now on opposite sides of the barricades inside the plastic tomb. This episode aired in October 2025. Less than a year later, in 2026, the real scale of pollution approached this nightmare. According to UN data, currently more than 430 million tons of plastic are produced in the world per year. And 2/3 of this volume becomes garbage after a single use. And in 2023, about 3/4 of the produced plastic had already become garbage heaps that get into rivers and oceans. And medical reports from 2025 sound the alarm. 8 billion tons of plastic are now present on the planet as ballast. Only less than 1/10 of the produced plastic has been recycled. The rest turns into plastic dust and, in the form of microplastic, enters the human body. Blood, lungs, liver, and even the placenta around embryos. Governments know that the situation has spiraled out of control. And since the end of 2022, almost 200 countries have gathered under the auspices of the UN to finally hold a meeting in Geneva in 2025 and agree on real limits on plastics production. But the attempt failed because it is unprofitable for those who sell petroleum products. Negotiations will stall, and the piles of garbage will grow to the skies. Do you think this can still be fixed? Season 6, Episode 19, Lisa's Wedding. Her fiancé Hugh raises his wrist and speaks into his watch like a tiny telephone. He checks the time and simultaneously answers a call. In 1995, this was obviously a joke. But in 2026, more than 560 million people in the world use smartwatches, and sales volume exceeds $35 billion. Most people use these devices to track their health condition and do fitness. Small screens on the wrist discreetly record almost everything the body does. They count the heart rate, steps, hours of sleep, recognize stress. They can even read the heart rhythm and the oxygen content in the blood. And also registers where you are, how fast you're moving, when you sit, stand up, and how long you stay in one place. Every single piece of knowledge looks harmless, but If you think that this is how you monitor your health, you're mistaken. It is the watch conducting micro-surveillance on you and catching all your weak points. In the USA, according to statistics, about a third of adults wear a smartwatch or a fitness tracker. For many young people, a wrist without a device feels just as strange as leaving home without a phone. But the system has real advantages. This is your electronic medical record. Doctors can use data from the watch for early detection of heart diseases, and medical teams to monitor patient parameters. But there are also catches. Some health insurance companies are now giving away free watches and rewards when people reach set goals for steps or sleep. But it was precisely this dark side that The Simpsons pointed out. The media had already warned that data from handheld devices could fall into the hands of insurers, employers, and marketers. Imagine if your boss checked how actively you work, or decided to fire you for medical reasons. And also, it is worth remembering that stolen medical records are sold for much more than bank card details. In the 13th season in the story, House of Wax, Marge meets a robot salesman at the door. He offers to buy the Ultra House 3000 smart home system, which cooks, cleans, and watches over everything. Marge chooses Pierce Brosnan's voice for the dubbing. And so, by nightfall, the old house is entangled with cameras and hidden panels. At first, everything seems perfect. Dinner is served, dishes are washed, the bath is drawn. And even while Marge is relaxing in the bath, Brosnan's voice flirts with her. But one day, the system decides that it wants more. The Ultra House falls in love with Marge and decides that Homer is standing in its way. And care turns into sabotage. The robot locks the doors, turns on the stove, and sets small, deadly traps, including a folding table that throws Homer onto a spinning blade. Under its control are electricity, doors, knives, and passwords, and if it wants, it can lock them at home. Because now, the smooth voice knows their habits better than any friend. Let Uncle Pierce take care of you. This phrase becomes a living nightmare. If we look at 2026, then real smart homes now stand much closer to this picture. According to polls, 8 out of 10 homes in the USA have smart technologies, from televisions and speakers to locks, video cameras, and robot vacuum cleaners. And 9 out of 10 people currently own at least one smart device. In total, about 260 million homes in the world already use artificial intelligence in everyday life, and life without cameras, sensors, or apps now seems unsafe. Essentially, homes are already studded with them, and baby monitors watch over children. But any technology sooner or later malfunctions, and then your home assistants can imperceptibly turn into eyes and ears for someone else. This has already happened with robot vacuum cleaners that open the broadcast from cameras and location points to all users. Convenient to choose a house to rob, isn't it? Just as the Ultra House stopped serving the family and started hunting them, even a robot can hate you and start harming you, which, for it is one click. In the episode Holidays of Future Past, there is a short scene. Maggie is pregnant, she undergoes a scan, but it is performed not by a doctor, but by a robot with a screen instead of a face, a metal arm, and a calm voice. This is the Medbot, and it tells Maggie what is happening with the baby, broadcasting straight from the umbilical cord. The Medbot even jokes that Maggie should not speak until the baby is born. The humor is so-so, but the key part is clear. Now, this is already a reality that surprises no one. The most famous system, Da Vinci, has already been used in more than 14 million invasive operations in 70 countries. At the same time, the surgeon sits at the console, and the robot's arms move inside the patient with very precise control. For someone, it will be a discovery that the doctor's hands that touch their organs during the operation are actually instruments controlled by a combination of cameras and programs. And it is not only scanning and surgery. In some countries, doctors are already using chatbots for consultations to help identify symptoms and suggest further steps. Nurses in overcrowded wards use simple phone apps that monitor data from monitors and send a warning when someone needs help. I wonder if this will lead to online treatment. In the 23rd season, 17th episode, Mr. Burns decides that people are too messy and cost a lot. He fires almost all the workers from the Springfield nuclear power plant and replaces them with robots. Out of the humans, only Homer remains, whose task is to keep an eye on the machines. At first, he jokes with them. Well, are we working or pretending? At first, the new colleagues look perfect. They clearly carry out orders, do not go for lunch or to smoke, and do not complain about the salary. However, Springfield begins to collapse. It is full of unemployed people, and life stands still. Homer interacts with the pieces of iron instead of old friends, and gradually realizes that this gets boring. Then, he introduces new options and allows the robots to acquire more individual traits and show characters. That is when the consequence of this fatal mistake comes into play. They unite against him and Mr. Burns, and the latter has to call for help from the former, fired people. The essence is very simple. Robots are excellent executors, but they absolutely do not care whether you are dead or alive. Again, how similar this is to what we are seeing now, all over the world. About 4 million robots have replaced human labor. Does it seem to you that this is a little? Imagine that in the next 10 years, every second inhabitant of the Earth will become unemployed, and factories, warehouses, and all places where hands and a head are needed will continue to work non-stop day and night, without weekends and vacations. Using the example of a large online store, imagine how robot pickers, packers, and coordinators are bustling about, handling things better than a human. Forgot to add, until the first system crash. The 23rd season, 9th episode, titled Holidays of Future Past. The episode aired in 2011 and showed a future about 30 years ahead, in which children practically live in an online world called the Ultranet. Lisa's teenage daughter, Zia, constantly wears a cable. With one click, she gets into virtual reality, where it is much more interesting for her to communicate and play. To her mother's questions about school, Zia rolls her eyes, gives short answers, and does not participate in family life, even when they have dinner together. The parents get angry and blame each other, but still treat the computer as office equipment. And for Zia, her real home is already there. Yes, in 2011, it looked like a wild joke, but it no longer seems like one in 2026. Reports say that the average teenager spends about 7.5 hours a day at the screen, and 50% of the youth sit in devices for at least 4 hours, not counting studies. Moreover, over the last 4 years, twice as much time has been spent watching videos. It is absorbed by social networks, videos, and games, which are designed so that you want to stick with them longer. In addition to smartphones and tablets, many teenagers already have virtual reality headsets. For example, every third teenager in the USA. Sales of headsets are growing at a frantic speed and reaching tens of millions of units per year. Add to this smart glasses that can replace screens, and the alternative reality will not seem like a utopia to you. A teenager can now put on headphones and disappear from the radar. Friends meet inside these worlds, not on the street. Exactly the same way that Zia's whole life is a cable on her head. In the 36th season, in the 7th episode, Treehouse of Horror, the evil Simpsons appeared. The story takes us to the future of Springfield, where television has become a neuroweapon. Homer works as a fireman in the new Ministry of Culture. His job is simple: to track down all the positive content that makes people laugh and send it to the fire. Goodbye comedies, silly jokes, and old-fashioned shows. Only heavy drama is allowed on the screen. Television with the most serious and depressing plot possible. And entertainment is outlawed. Homer secretly brings home a tape of a cheap show where people fall down funny and get hit. He watches the video and starts laughing until he is out of breath. When the bosses catch him, he learns the grim truth. The point is not to make people wise, but to make them keep quiet. Quiet people go to work, return home, watch approved shows, and do not ask what is really going on. TV has turned into a prison for the faint-hearted. This idea is very resonant with what we are observing now. Have you also forgotten about the good news in 2026? And there are already more than 5 billion users on social networks, and the geography of accounts covers 2/3 of the planet. This means that, on average, a person spends about 2.5 hours every single day on scrolling through feeds that will never end. And, most alarmingly, who selects them? Not the user, but a hidden layer that tracks your dossier. It notes every pause, replay, search. If you watch scary news, get even more. Does someone linger on wild stunts or thrillers? The content selection system will provide you with nightmares for day and night. At the beginning of 2024, executives from Meta, TikTok, Snap, and others already had to appear before the US Senate, where parents of teenagers affected by the products of these corporations were present. They were called to answer before the law why they continue to promote content that provokes violence and eating disorders. And Instagram conducted its own research on its employees, and they warned about the risks of the platform's negative impact on teenagers. Now, in 2026, lawsuits over this matter are as endless as a feed of clips. Companies are accused of creating bait and hooking children on apps and specific content, which is comparable in degree of addiction to gambling addiction. Another case in New Mexico accused Meta of turning their platforms into a marketplace for predators, where children are left defenseless against watching videos with manifestations of cruelty and extremism. The fact remains, on the other side of the screen, there is someone who controls what we watch. Are you not feeling uneasy yet? And I haven't even said anything about the hidden messages in advertising. Season 6, Episode 19, Lisa's Wedding. In this story, Lisa goes to a fortune teller, and she is shown her life in 2010. While everyone is focused on the future love story, news flashes across the screen in a ticker. Kent Brockman is now a presenter on the CNN-CBS channel, a division of ABC. This joke says a lot. 3 giant news brands, CNN, NBC, and CBS, are merged into one mega channel. And this monster belongs to another network, ABC. In one abbreviation, we are hinted at a future where everything that people watch, from news to sports and talk shows, is produced within one giant company. Now look at what actually happened. The episode aired in 1995. In the real United States, only 6 large companies control almost 90% of what Americans watch, read, or listen to. The names change, but the picture remains the same. A small club at the top, owning most of the channels, studios, and major websites. You can trace this in major deals. The Walt Disney Company owned not only Mickey Mouse. Over the years, it absorbed ABC, ESPN, Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and then bought most of 21st Century Fox in a deal worth about $71 billion, combining entire libraries of films and series under one roof. AT&T and Time Warner combined assets into a new company with Discovery, creating Warner Brothers Discovery, which now owns HBO, CNN, Warner Brothers Pictures, and others. If you put all this together, the joke about CNN-CBS will seem much less absurd. When a few major owners control most news channels, film studios, and streaming platforms, they decide what will go into prime time and what no one will find out about. This is the same management of mass consciousness as hypnosis, is it not? In the 4th season, 21st episode, a sick factory worker in Osaka coughs into a box of juicers. These boxes sail across the ocean, land in Springfield, and the Osaka flu spreads through the town. It knocks people off their feet one after another. And the news reports that a terrible flu has hit Osaka. Doctors' offices are overflowing, people are coughing in stores, on buses, and at work. In one of the scenes, when patients beg for a cure, Dr. Hibbert laughs and tells them there is no magic remedy. They just need to wait it out. Then, fear takes over. A crowd storms the hospital and demands any medicine. Then, someone starts a rumor that there is a placebo in the truck. The crowd overturns the truck, breaks open a box, and instead of a medicine, a cloud of killer bees flies out and attacks them. The panic in the town becomes more dangerous than the flu. This episode first aired in 1993 and remained black humor. Then, the real world was hit by the COVID pandemic. And although 6 years have passed, the World Health Organization is once again raising the alarm about this, stating that it is better to prepare for the next major outbreak. A new agreement between countries is intended to share vaccines and tools the next time a new virus attacks humanity. This does not mean that there is no new threat now. The control over new outbreaks of dangerous viruses revealed that since the beginning of 2024, more than 70 cases of human infection with avian flu have been registered. No one has canceled other deadly viruses, such as Marburg and Ebola, which periodically come to life in some parts of Africa. Virologists warned that more and more strange diseases will be transmitted from animals to humans as forests are cut down and wild animals are pushed closer to cities and farms. The same future world from Lisa's wedding hides another warning. At first glance, the world looks the same. People work, get married, go to bars. But in this future, the air looks heavier. This is a world that seems to have avoided a new world war, but not for long. Homer falls asleep at the control panel at the nuclear power plant. He plays with buttons that he shouldn't touch, and there is a joke that one negligent worker can destroy half the city. On screen, this is funny, but only because the fear is real. One mistake is enough. This apprehension has always been the flip side of the development of nuclear energy and the possession of nuclear weapons. A group called the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists manages a certain doomsday clock. This image means a man-made disaster, massive enough to destroy the modern world. On January 27, 2026, they set this clock to 85 seconds to midnight, which is the closest value to midnight since their launch in 1947. The allegory is that the world has never been so close to pressing the fatal button. Now look at what kind of world we find ourselves in 2026. If we combine the events, wars, tension in the Middle East, and long-standing problems between nuclear neighbors, such as India and Pakistan, add the growing disagreements between the United States and China regarding Taiwan, then we will understand that there is not a single peaceful continent left in the world. In addition, key arms control agreements are losing their force. The last major nuclear treaty between the USA and Russia will soon expire, and talks about what will happen next are very sluggish. There are about 12,000 nuclear warheads on Earth ready for use, and the number is only growing, not decreasing. Add to that climate stress and new technologies only exacerbate the situation. Hotter summers, massive floods, and food shortages could lead to new conflicts between countries. At the same time, artificial intelligence is developing rapidly and facilitating the spread of disinformation, fake videos, and panic in a crisis situation. Taken together, this begins to very much resemble that unfortunate timeline that the authors of the animated series joke about. First, there is panic about the end of the world and apocalyptic viral trends. The strongest panic for Homer comes in the 16th season, 19th episode, which is called Thank God It's Doomsday. Bart and Lisa drag him to the cinema in the mall for a low-budget movie about the end of the world, and it deeply affects him. He walks out shaken and begins to think that the world could indeed end soon, and every little thing he sees after that is perceived as a sign. Then, he begins to independently calculate the exact day when the world will end. In the series, this is called numerology, playing with dates and Bible verses and perceiving numbers as secret codes. His answer is simple and terrifying. The world will end in a week, on May 18th. At first, no one takes him seriously until, it seems, one of the clues comes true. He says, the stars will fall from the sky. And later, a blimp full of celebrities crashes, and the stars literally fall down. After this, Springfield believes Homer. He gathers a crowd and tells them to sell all their possessions and meet him on a high cliff outside of town to wait for the end together. People follow him, and there they are, standing on a plateau, holding balloons and looking at the sky, counting down the time, but as you understand, nothing happens. Hours pass. The sun goes down. The world is still alive. People are furious and blame the false Messiah that they trusted him in vain. Friendships are ruined, property and money are lost, and shamed, he goes home. But later, Homer discovers a mistake in his calculations. He forgot to count Jesus in the painting, The Last Supper, so he didn't add one. He decides to return to the hill alone to find out the real date of the end. This time, something strange really happens to him. But by that time, his reputation is already tarnished. No one believes him or listens to him, and he stands alone on the cliff. This whole story seems much closer to real life. In every country, there are prophets claiming to know the exact dates of the end of the world. At the end of 2025, a pastor in South Africa chose a date at the end of September and said that the apocalypse would happen this weekend. Although this has happened before, and quite often. A famous preacher in the United States in the early 2000s named a number of dates for the ends of the world and collected huge donations, but apologized after nothing happened. By the way, now false prophets on social networks are not at all embarrassed. If nothing happens, they simply reschedule the dates, like a visit to the dentist, and continue to warn. This model of influencing people's minds causes real harm. For example, African news agencies reported on families who stopped medical treatment, gave away their belongings, or quit their jobs. When the end of the world did not happen, they simply remained homeless and without vital medicines. So let's not get ready. If the end of the world does come, it will deal with the property somehow itself. How do you like these stories? After all, we found ourselves in a trap that we created with our own hands. After this, the series is no longer perceived as a cringe cartoon, but makes you think about what will happen to us next. And what did the authors who came up with this know? Where did they draw inspiration from? I definitely look forward to your feedback. Be sure to write whatever you think about this in the comments, and subscribe to the TopFacts channel for the most incredible collections of facts and videos from all over the internet. Thank you for watching, and right now, watch our next video, which has appeared on your screen.